Green Business Challenge webinar series. My name is Danny Glazer, and I'm one of the organizers of the WGBC program. My partners, Neil Cutler and Scott Fernquist, are on the call and helping with today's program. So as you can see, my screen is set to our Facebook page. So please go ahead and like us on facebook.com/Westchester Green Business Challenge. So the purpose of the webinar series is to engage members more directly on a variety of topics that will help advance sustainability efforts in the Westchester County business community. The topic of today's webinar is energy efficiency and renewable energy for business. This is clearly a topic of interest since over 80 of you registered for this webinar. Our presenters are Elizabeth Cilic and Melissa Lopez, co-coordinators of the Westchester Bronx Energy Smart Communities. Please submit your questions in the question box during this webinar, and we'll try to answer as many as possible on this call, and if not, Elizabeth and Melissa will get back to you after the presentation. And the webinar is being recorded and posted to the WGBC website. So very briefly, the WGBC program is designed to help all 35,000 Westchester County businesses go green. It's a public-private partnership between Westchester County government and the Business Council of Westchester. It's a free program that helps businesses save money, improve the environment, and promote your success. You can learn all about the program on our website, which is www.westchestergreenbusinesschallenge.org. We're very grateful to our sponsors, Con Edison, a platinum level sponsor, Pernod Ricard USA, and Rexon SL Green, both bronze level sponsors, and the sponsor of today's webinar, Courtney Strong, an independent contractor to NYSERDA. We'd like to let you know that on May 31st, which is next Thursday, we are having our second annual recognition event recognizing and awarding companies who have taken exceptional steps toward operating more sustainably. County Executive Rob Astorino and Business Council President and CEO Marcia Gordon will be there to congratulate participants. If you would like to attend the event, a link to the invitation can be found on our website, the address I gave you earlier. We will repeat it again later. And you can go to the recognition event page and you will find all the information. And there's a contact us page as well, so you can always go there to know how to reach us. If you're interested in hosting a webinar such as this one, more information can be found on the website as well. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Cilic and Melissa Lopez. Elizabeth earned her Juris Doctor from Pace Law School with a certificate in environmental law. She spearheaded and managed White Plains Clean and Green, an environmental awareness and outreach event which continues today under the name Sustain White Plains as part of White Plains Earth Week. She has served as Regional Coordinator for the Energy Smart Communities Program and Outreach Project of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA, since 2010. In that capacity, Elizabeth regularly collaborates with local leaders in sustainability to present information about NYSERDA programs to a broad range of audience. And Liz has been a very, very good friend to the Westchester Green Business Challenge and to all of us. Melissa possesses a wide range of marketing and economic development experience in both the public and private sectors. During Mayor Joseph Delfino's $2 billion renaissance of the City of White Plains, Ms. Lopez oversaw the day-to-day operations of the City Office of Economic Development. As Coordinator of Economic Development and Public Information for White Plains, Melissa oversaw the implementation of Phase 2 of the city's revitalization plan, which focused on community building, citizen engagement, outreach activities, and quality of life initiatives. Melissa has recently joined the Westchester Bronx Energy Smart Communities team as a coordinator. She's attended several events throughout the county, educating the public and about NYSERDA programs. So we're very excited to have Melissa and Elizabeth. I'm going to switch the presenter over to Elizabeth. In 1 second.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Elizabeth Cilik. I am with Courtney Strong, Inc. We are a marketing communications firm that is contracted to the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And as Danny mentioned, I'm here with my co-coordinator, Melissa Lopez. And we're going to go over the primary commercial programs that are applicable to business owners available through NYSERDA.
Hello, everyone. This is Melissa. As Liz has mentioned, NYSERDA stands for the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. It is a quasi-public agency set up by New York State to administer the system benefits charge, which is a small charge that's on your energy bill and is used to pay for energy improvements and energy research. With the exception of the Small Business Energy Audit Program, which is funded by a different source, paying the SBC is important to benefit from NYSERDA's program. And so if you're listening and are interested in the programs that we'll be discussing throughout the presentation, you should know, and we like to say this in advance, that NYPA and LIPA customers cannot benefit from the programs that we're discussing today. To move on.
Just a moment. Okay.
So NYSERDA has open enrollment programs, which is what we're going to cover today, and they basically include cost sharing and financial incentives for the commercial sector. In addition, NYSERDA has residential programs and other programs that come up from time to time. So we do encourage that you visit the website, nyserda.newyork.gov, which you are going to find at the end of this presentation, and look at other opportunities that may be available to you.
Great. So the first program I'm going to touch on is really applicable to small businesses and not-for-profits. And basically, the way that NYSERDA defines a small business in this context is a facility that has an average electric demand of 100 kilowatts or less over the per month over the course of a year on average. So if you look at your bill and you see that maybe 1 month you have, a demand charge of 120 kilowatts, so then the next month it's 80. You would average that over a course of a year, and it actually really applies to quite large energy-intensive facilities. So I'm told. So this program is basically available to help you make informed electrical energy decisions. So what happens is the contractor comes in and assesses the facility. It's called sort of a clipboard audit. They look at your HVAC system, they look at your lighting, your appliances, and they deliver a fairly comprehensive report, which can help you, make decisions about going forward. And right now, this program is free. It used to cost up to $400, and because NYSERDA was able to leverage some additional funds for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, it is now free for small businesses and not-for-profits. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. This slide shows a sample report of an energy audit. So as you can see, it breaks down the cost of the recommendation, the annual savings you can expect to realize from the implementation, and the payback. So you can sort of determine what is going to pay itself back quickly and what might be a more long-term investment. And as you can see, if you combine measures that have various paybacks, then you can sort of average out, a nice project that works for your bottom line. So the contract for the energy audit program in our region, Daylight Savings Company is the sole company that performs this audit. The contact, as you can see there, is Brian Nieves. I gave you his cell phone number and his email address. So I encourage you to go ahead and contact him if you have any questions specific to this program or you're ready to apply. And actually, the Daylight Savings Company will apply on your behalf to NYSERDA. So they make it very easy for you. They, collect the information and they go ahead and apply on your behalf. I definitely encourage anybody who's eligible to take advantage of this. Now to implement, we also have financing available. This is another exception to the rule that Melissa mentioned prior about the SBC. This does not require payment of the SBC in order to participate in this, because the funding came through the Green Jobs, Green New York legislation. And so basically this is available to small business owners and not-for-profits. In this context, a small business owner is one that has 100 employees or less. So that's, you know, an important distinction. Just for this particular program, that's the definition. So basically what happens is NYSERDA lends half of the loan at 0% interest, and then the other half you would get from your regular bank, your lender, at whatever the market rate is. So effectively what happens is it cuts the market interest rate in half. This is only available to fund energy efficiency improvements, of course, but it's a maximum of $50,000 from NYSERDA, which, because it's half of the cost of the loan, really, you know, it's a maximum of $100,000. And one of the main prerequisite for taking advantage of this program is that the facility has to have had a qualified energy audit. Of course, the energy audit that I just mentioned is a qualified energy audit, but you can also, in some circumstances, use a private energy auditor or a utility audit, Con Edison or NYSEG or something like that. On-bill recovery, just really quick, it's not available yet, but essentially the principle behind on-bill recovery is that you would pay back your loan through a charge on your utility bill. So as opposed to making a separate loan payment, you would have the repayment on your bill, and the idea being that you would be balancing out your payments by your cost savings, and that should be available soon. Now, for the FlexTech program, this is basically the program that's available to larger businesses, those that are more energy-intensive businesses, I should say, those that have a greater electric demand than 100 kilowatts. So in this case, it's not free because it's a very comprehensive audit, and it's a 50-50 cost share with NYSERDA. And this can be leveraged to fund energy feasibility studies, energy procurement strategies, you know, energy management plans, peak load reduction. In other words, NYSERDA's engineers, or the engineer that you select, will really get in there and help you make informed decisions about, you know, really comprehensive projects. So again, it's a 50-50 cost share, which can be an excellent help. And, excuse me. And I just want to note that with the FlexTech program, there are several already approved FlexTech consultants that NYSERDA has already sort of listed as qualified to do this work. And if you choose one of the consultants from the list, then basically NYSERDA is going to pay that consultant directly, and you only come up with your half of the cost. However, if you have an engineer that you want to use, you can apply to NYSERDA for approval of that engineer, and then they can go ahead and do the study, and you'll still be eligible for the incentive. However, it'll be a reimbursement, so you would need to come out of pocket for the full cost.
And St. John's Riverside Hospital in Yonkers, New York, is a great example of what you can do with the FlexTech program. They used NYSERDA's program to perform an energy feasibility study to help them plan an upgrade for their HVAC systems and chiller plant. They engaged a consultant, his name is Gus DiConzo, who has significant healthcare and energy efficiency experience. And so what St. John's did, they replaced their chiller and were able to realize about $15,000 in savings annually. In addition, and Elizabeth's going to get into this when she discusses the CFA a little bit later, but through the CFA application, they were awarded an additional $1 million from the Environmental Facilities Corporation for a green roof project.
So the program that really helps you to get the work done, right? We've been discussing the programs that are involved in energy analysis and, you know, sort of surveying what you should be doing. But the program that's going to help you to actually implement and you know, give you money to get it done is the existing facilities program. So it's divided into two parts, and what you see on the screen now refers to the pre-qualified incentives. Essentially, pre-qualified incentives are what they sound like. They're they refer to specific equipment that's already been pre-qualified by NYSERDA to be eligible for incentives because of their energy efficiency ratings. And it's very specific. It's laid out fairly clearly, especially if you have an engineering background, as to what sorts of equipment will apply. Now, with this program, you don't necessarily have to have had an audit. It's obviously a good idea to have an informed, to make an informed decision through, the use of an audit, but you don't necessarily have to in order to use this program. So basically, per unit payments for pre-qualified incentives up to $30,000. And you can see here, these are the measures that are eligible. So it's lighting, HVAC, chillers, motors, interval meters, variable frequency drives, commercial refrigeration, and commercial kitchen equipment and washers. This only refers to electric at this point. We did have gas funding previously, and we expect that gas funding will come back. So in other words, incentives to replace gas-powered equipment. But at this time, basically the funding ran out in the last round, and it's not available at the moment. But if you have electric equipment that requires replacement, this is the program for you. And how to participate, I'm going to get, as Melissa mentioned, I'm going to get into the CFA, which stands for the Consolidated Funding Application, a little bit later. But with this program, what you want to make sure that you do is obviously make sure that the equipment that you're intending to buy actually meets NYSERDA's criteria for energy efficient equipment that qualifies. And then once you purchase and install the equipment, you need to complete and submit the application with its required documentation within 90 days of having done that. So it's after the fact, but you have to do it within that 3-month period after you purchase and install it. Okay. And so now, if you're talking about a larger project, or you want to get more in depth, we do have incentives through the existing facilities program for performance-based measures. And basically that means what it sounds like as well. The incentive is based on how well the project performs in terms of energy efficiency. In order to participate in this program, the project needs to qualify for at least $30,000 worth of incentives. So you're talking about a larger project. You can't do this with a smaller project. But if you do qualify, essentially you can see here what the amount is that you would get from NYSERDA. So for instance, for electric efficiency measures, say you did a lighting retrofit that reduced your power consumption by, well, I'm not going to get into numbers, but in any event, you'll get 16 cents per kilowatt hour reduced by the project. You can see, like for industrial and process efficiency, it's the same thing, but there are variations depending on what types of measures you do.
And Rex and SL Green, they're currently working on upgrading their entire portfolio, and they've really come a long way in energy efficiency, and they're a great example. But overall, we'd like to highlight many of their projects, but on this slide we're going to highlight their Class A commercial office space building that's in White Plains, 360 Hamilton Avenue. On this slide, there's various bullets that explain what they did, but their lighting retrofit in the building's core, garage, and common areas is a perfect example on how addressing the low-hanging fruit with NYSERDA's funding can really make an investment that provides easy and quick turnaround on the payback period. They had an annual savings of $500,000 and 1.3-year payback period. And like I mentioned before, this is something that they're doing on various buildings in their portfolio, so the payback is larger as you start adding in all the various projects.
And I'll mention that Rexon, actually St. John's, Rexon, and the next case study that we have, they are all members of the Westchester Green Business Challenge, and I think that's how I found them in some cases. But in any event, yeah, they've been doing a really good job of staying on the cutting edge. Now, we also have a program available for new construction, new commercial construction. Essentially, the new construction program is going to pay for about 30 to 50% of the incremental cost of building efficient. So the incremental cost, if you're not familiar with that term, basically what that refers to is the difference between conventional construction, to energy code, and more efficient construction. So, for instance, let's say you're going to build something that, if you build it conventionally, it'll cost $100,000, and then to build it energy efficient, it's going to cost $150,000. Your incremental cost is that difference, that $50,000. So what the general estimate for the new construction program is that basically NYSERDA will pay for 30 to 50% of the incremental cost of building that new construction energy efficient. And it also applies to substantially renovated buildings and changes of use. So if you have a large facility that is changing from one use to another, has been vacant for a period of time, or is being substantially renovated, that may also qualify for the new construction program. The important thing to remember about the new construction program, if you are thinking about a project or you know somebody that's thinking about a project, you need to apply for these incentives early, like before the design phase or as soon into the design phase as you can, in order for NYSERDA to really do a sufficient assessment of how you can get the most bang for your buck in terms of efficiency, in terms of our program. So just keep that in mind.
And Jacob Burns, known around the country as a leader in the independent film industry, is also a leader in energy efficiency. The Jacob Burns Media Arts Center in Pleasantville is a LEED certified new construction building. Under NYSERDA's new construction program, they were able to receive 40% of the incremental cost and are saving $16,000 a year. You can see on this slide some of the work that was done to receive LEED certification. As I mentioned, NYSERDA had covered 40% of their incremental cost, and they also incorporated solar technology into the project. You can see in the photo there, you can see that some of the panels. And they were awarded 55% of the cost towards that solar installation.
Now, I'm going to talk about the consolidated funding application, because in order to participate in all of these programs, with the exception of the Green Jobs, Green New York Small Business Financing Program, you need to have filled out the consolidated funding application. And basically what it is, it's aligned with Governor Cuomo's Regional Economic Development Councils, and I'm sure there are people on the call that are familiar with them. But for those who are not, basically these councils have been set up in order to improve economic development and job creation throughout the state. So we are part of the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council, and in order to participate in these programs, as I mentioned, you need to fill out this consolidated funding application, which is reviewed by this council in making determinations about which projects sort of support their vision. So the advantage to this application is that it has streamlined the process of applying for state incentives and state benefits. So whereas prior to this application, you would go to, Empire State Development Corporation for money for business loans, and you would go to NYSERDA for energy efficiency stuff, and you would go to, you would have to go to each separate agency. Now these incentives are all in one place. So in addition to the NYSERDA programs, there's funding available, as you can see, for agriculture, community and waterfront revitalization, direct assistance to businesses, a variety of things. One example, for instance, that sort of comports with NYSERDA's programs is the New York Power Authority has the Recharge New York program that's available through the CFA as well, and it is like a low-cost energy price lock-in. So if you were looking to improve energy on a broad scale, you could apply for both those programs at the same time. So let me just, okay, so I covered that. Now, specifically for NYSERDA programs, when you go to this application, you're going to, and I'll show the information on how to apply, but you you want to choose energy efficiency project. It doesn't say NYSERDA. It says energy efficiency projects for customers with a total annual utility usage less than 5 million. So that's, they're talking more about what you're aiming to do, not necessarily where you're aiming to get the money from. You'll need your utility name and account number and your total annual cost and usage. Please identify, if anybody goes ahead and applies for this, that you found out about it through the Energy Smart Communities program, and that's one of the options to check. And another important thing, for a lot of the other programs, you need to submit pretty detailed information on the budget that you expect your project to have. In the context of NYSERDA funds, there are not budget questions. So if you're only applying for NYSERDA, you don't need to get into that level of detail. The other thing I want to mention about the CFA, which might be a little bit confusing for people, is that it says that there's a deadline of July 16th for applications for this round of funding. That does not apply to the programs that I'm discussing today. These programs are, as Melissa mentioned, open enrollment programs. They're on an ongoing basis, and they're not subject to that deadline. The only program available through NYSERDA right now that is subject to the July 16th deadline is the, where's the name of it? The Regional Economic Development and Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program. And so basically it's $12 million that was just recently released for large projects that, basically fund clean energy and economic development projects that are aligned with the REDC, the Regional Economic Development Council's strategic plan. I'm not going to get into detail about that program. Please feel free to email me if you want information about it. But that's the only NYSERDA program available right now through the CFA that is subject to the deadline. Let's see. Oh, this is just a screenshot of, the type of project selection. So when you go into the consolidated funding application, you would, click on what you're interested in. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like.
And as Elizabeth had previously mentioned, daylight savings does help in filling out the application. Actually, they would do it for you after asking a number of questions. But if you are interested in learning more about the CFA, there are CFA workshops that are upcoming, and there's actually one tonight at SUNY Orange Middletown's campus, and the other one being on June 25th. These are the Mid-Hudson workshops. But if you are interested in other ones throughout the state, there's a full list on regionalcouncils.ny.gov that you can go visit and find the full list across the state.
Right, and that is actually the website that you would go to in order to fill out a consolidated funding application. And you could also go to NYSERDA's website if you're filling out, if you're interested in NYSERDA programs, and it will direct you to the consolidated funding application. So I'll touch on some of our renewable energy programs. Actually, I just realized powernaturally.org is no longer really functional. A lot of this information is it's not really intuitively located on the website at this point. So if you want more information, I encourage you to email me, and I can send you the links. But basically, we have the solar photovoltaic program. It's $1.50 a watt for solar photovoltaic, a solar electric incentive. The maximum incentive for a commercial property is 50 kilowatts or $75,000. If you're a not-for-profit, it's 25 kilowatts. So just so you're aware of that. And if you're interested even in just kind of playing around with the idea, there's a very, very cool tool on NYSERDA's website, the Clean Power Estimator tool, and you can sort of plug in your information about where your building is located, what you're paying right now for electricity, the tilt of your roof. If you have that information, you can plug in as much information as you want, and it'll generate what I'm told is a very conservative estimate as to what types of incentives you would get through NYSERDA and through the state, through taxes, and then it'll, you can kind of get an idea of what sorts of costs you would be looking at to install something like that. The wind incentives, I'm told, are not really that relevant to our area, just because of the dynamics of having a lack of wind here. But they are available, and the incentive starts at $3.50 per kilowatt hour saved. That's a maximum of 50% of the total cost. And there's also a similar tool to use on the website, and that's the website address is there. It's NYSWE. You can see it. That's not actually on NYSERDA's website. So again, if you have issues finding anything, please just email me and I'll send you the information. We also have solar thermal incentives. I don't have a lot of information about them simply because they're only available to replace electric hot water, and that does not tend to be the setup in our area. So again, if you need information, email me. And to participate in the solar wind incentive programs, essentially all you do is use an installer that has been approved by NYSERDA and is qualified as an quote-unquote eligible installer. So you don't have to deal with the paperwork with NYSERDA. Basically, the installer receives the incentive once the project has been approved by NYSERDA, and they pass that cost and that savings or that incentive on to the customer in full. So again, if you're interested, email me and I'll send you some resources on how to choose an eligible installer and a full list of installers that serve your area. All right, that pretty much covers it. We wanted to leave plenty of time for questions, but this is our information. So please do take down our email and phone numbers, and feel free to contact us. And of course, NYSERDA's website is www.nyserda.ny.gov. So if there are any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, and the moderator will go ahead and ask, and I can certainly answer them.
Thanks, Elizabeth and Melissa. This is Neil Cutler speaking. I'm one of the organizers of the Westchester Green Business Challenge, and that was a very informative presentation. Certainly you provided a wealth of information about opportunities for funding and some terrific examples of what some local businesses right here in Westchester have already done. Anyone who would like to send a question over, we do have a few that we've received already. Just type those into the question box that you see in your control panel, and we will ask Elizabeth and Melissa to answer those. If we don't get to them all, then they will answer your question via email after today's webinar. So first question we have is you refer to the qualified audit report, and the person who asked this is wondering if any other company other than Daylight Savings can provide the report and recommend measures. And then once the recommendations are done, are there any requirements on who installs those measures for the recipient?
Okay, so in order to take advantage of NYSERDA's subsidy for this audit, then Daylight Savings is the only contractor. So you are absolutely welcome to, use another contractor to get an audit, but you won't be able to get it for free. I'm assuming though that that question is in regard to the financing and the qualified energy audit. That's a prerequisite for the financing. So in that case, I think it would be advisable to contact NYSERDA and make sure, if you're using like a private engineer to do the audit, to make sure that that would qualify as a quote-unquote qualified energy audit for the purposes of the financing. In terms of implementation, there are no requirements for who needs to implement the work. In fact, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're asking about the small business program, you're probably looking at pre-qualified incentives through the existing facilities program, which are the the more rebate-based incentives. And in that case, I mean, strictly speaking, you could install them yourself or have your on-site staff install them, and there's really no requirement that you use anybody in particular. You just submit your documentation within 90 days and get your incentives. Just make sure the equipment actually qualifies for the incentive before you buy it.
Great, thank you. Next question we have is, how can I tell if my business is within that 100 kilowatt hour or less threshold, and do I need to know that before I call for an audit?
No, I would say, go ahead and call Brian Nieves or email him, and he can walk you through that process. I mean, basically, it's going to be on your bill, and it's a demand charge, and it's I can't tell you over the phone necessarily where exactly to look for it, but certainly Daylight is there to help you figure that out.
Great, thank you.
You want me to,
okay.
Actually, I'll go back to that slide just so the information is on the screen.
Oh, terrific.
Go ahead, Neil.
While you're looking for that, someone asked if a photovoltaic system is considered a qualified energy efficiency improvement and would be eligible for, so would it be eligible for funding, I think is where that question
under the
is going.
existing facilities program, maybe? Yeah. Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're referring to, but for a photovoltaic installation, it's only going to be, it's only going to qualify for incentives through the solar PV program, which I mentioned at the end, the $1.50 per watt up to 50 kilowatts in the commercial context. It's because the existing facilities program really relates to efficiency measures, not renewable energy measures. So I hope that answers the question, and if it doesn't, feel free to email me and we can further clarify.
Okay. So another question on solar. You mentioned in one of the slides there was a 55% funding. I think that was for the Jacob Burns
yes.
Center.
Mm-hmm.
The person asking is wondering, how is that calculated? 55% of what part of the cost of the solar?
I don't have that information with me. I could certainly contact, the people that I got the information from at Jacob Burns and at NYSERDA if there's further interest, and I could answer that separately offline.
Okay. Here's a question on financing. Again, for solar, the part that NYSERDA does not pick up on the financing for solar, do you know of other financing options that are available to cover the remaining cost or part of it?
Well, the financing is actually not available for solar. It's technically available, but it has the Green Jobs Green New York financing is really meant for implementation of efficiency measures. Technically speaking, I am told that it could finance solar projects, but that it has very strict cost effectiveness threshold that solar does not necessarily meet in this particular situation. So really the Green Jobs Green New York financing is probably not going to be available to finance a solar project. A lot of solar installers will work with the customer to either figure out some arrangement, financing with the actual company, or help connect them to a bank that will do it. So that's really the best route to go. And if you're interested in solar, like I said, I can send you some information as to the best way to choose a solar installer, and send you the list of the installers that are that work with NYSERDA. And really, I mean, what you want to do is shop around and make sure that you're using an installer that's savvy enough to help you with that process, because they want to get projects done too. They should be kind of up on what's available in terms of financing. But the financing program that I mentioned is really not applicable to solar in most cases.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. I guess we have maybe a few people on the call that might not be, that may be NYPA customers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're wondering if these incentives would work for them, or if you know of other incentives or where they can go if they're NYPA customers.
Right. Well, the energy audit program was formerly available to anybody, but I'll just clarify that generally speaking, NYPA customers are municipal entities or buildings that are owned by municipal entities. If that's not the case, if whoever asked that question, if that's not the case for them, it's sort of a specific situation, so please email me and we can work that out further. But generally speaking, when you're dealing with municipal customers, they're not eligible for the energy audit. They were initially, and now they're not eligible for the free energy audit. The financing, I really have to look into further. I'm actually not sure about that. So please do email me about that, because you know, if there are people out there that are using NYPA but that might be able to leverage some of these programs, I would really be happy to help you.
Okay, thanks. I guess also people listening in are not only interested in commercial, but people wondering if some of these things would apply where they live as well.
Sure.
So they're curious, for example, of the free energy audit. Do you know if that's available for residential?
Well, basically, it's a completely different program when you're dealing. I mean, NYSERDA has, I don't know, 40, 50 programs. It's a completely different program, which has a very different structure. But the short answer is for a 1 to 4 family home, there is a subsidy available through NYSERDA to fund a free audit. If your total household income, if you're a Westchester resident and your total household income is below $215,800, then NYSERDA will offer a subsidy. In the event that it's a 1 to 4 family home and you own it and you've never had, you know, you've never used this program before, NYSERDA will basically pay a contractor to come in and perform an audit. And it's a very different audit for a residential property than it is for commercial property. It's called the Home Performance with Energy Star program. And if you go to NYSERDA's website, www.nyserda.ny.gov, and you find the tab for residential, and I think it's existing homes, all the information should be there, and it'll bring you to a link to the application, which is, again, a Green Jobs, Green New York initiative. So it says, you know, I believe it says Green Jobs, Green New York free or reduced cost audit. So you would fill out that application, and NYSERDA would basically give you a reservation number, and you would use that reservation number to make an appointment with a participating home performance contractor. Again, they do have to be participating in our program. They have to be listed on our website. And then, you know, they'll come in and they'll do the free audit, and then you take it from there. And there are a variety of financing and incentives to help implement that particular project as well. So, again, email me and I can send you the links to all that information.
Great, thank you. One more question here. This is regarding NYSERDA's new construction program funding. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how familiar you are with this exactly. The question is, I've heard there will be a change to the contractor running this program. Do you know when that will happen and what else will be changing due to this change in contractors?
Right. They're referring to the outreach project consultant, and basically it's not the contractor that does the work. So I just want to be clear on that. An outreach project consultant is basically a contractor that NYSERDA engages to help walk customers through the new construction program, and really, because it's a very, you know, comprehensive, in-depth technical program, to sort of manage the projects, you know, and be a liaison between the customer and NYSERDA. The former contractor was SAIC. It's my understanding that the change, if it hasn't already taken place, will be very, very shortly. I don't believe that this will have any effect on I know it won't have any effect on what's available in terms of incentives. It has nothing to do with, you know, any kind of change in the program itself. It's just going to be, you know, a different contractor that's sort of servicing the customers.
And actually,
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Liz. I recently went to an event and met some of the contractors, and they're transitioning slowly, but actually the contacts are going to be the same. Many of the people who worked for SAIC are moving on to the new contractor. So they told me that their phone numbers are the same if anybody already has contacted or has spoken with any of these representatives, their phone numbers will stay the same, and they're transitioning slowly. So they should, they haven't fully moved on, but they should be with the new company soon.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, thank you both. The last question I see here is asking about the PV low-interest loan qualifier. I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but maybe you could talk about that program.
PV low-interest loan qualifier. I don't really know what they're referring to.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That possibly that's a reference to what I was talking about before, the cost-effectiveness measure in order to use the loan. I'm not sure. If somebody could, if you want to clarify that question a little bit,
Sure.
or email me, that's great.
Yeah, that actually, oh, I see one more came in. What are the criteria for storage applications regarding peak load reduction or kilowatt rating of the batteries, if you're familiar with that?
That's way over my head.
Sounds like a good question for an engineer.
Yeah, exactly. Law is my background. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But any questions like that, you can certainly forward to me, and I can pass them on to a project manager that's better equipped to answer them.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Any other questions that people have? Hopefully you copied down Elizabeth and Melissa's contact information.
I will. I'll go back to the slide.
Terrific. And you can definitely contact them after the webinar. At this time, I would like to conclude our webinar. Very big thank you for a great presentation by Elizabeth Cilic and Melissa Lopez, co-coordinators of the Westchester Bronx Energy Smart Communities and NYSERDA program. Today's webinar is sponsored by Courtney Strong, Inc., a NYSERDA contractor. Also want to thank our program sponsors, Con Ed, Pernod Ricard, Rexon, and to everyone participating in today's webinar. Don't forget there's still time to register for our recognition event, second annual, coming up next Thursday, May 31st at the Edith Macy Conference Center in Briarcliff from 5 till 8 p.m. That evening, participants in the Green Business Challenge will be recognized by Westchester County Executive Robert Astorino and by President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester, Dr. Marcia Gordon. There will also be some special awards given out that evening for outstanding achievements in sustainability by local businesses. Registration for this event and information about the Westchester Green Business Challenge can be found at our new website address, westchestergreenbusinesschallenge.org. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and a terrific Memorial Day weekend.